Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about Premiere. And so Premiere is this video editing program, and it's a non-linear, non-destructive video editing program, which basically means that all of your files that you've shot, so all the footage is going to live on like a hard drive over here. And what Premiere does is it dumps all of that footage into a timeline for you and allows you to chop it up and recombine it and do a whole bunch of effects to it and stuff like that. But it doesn't actually do anything to the real footage. It just places kind of a proxy representation of your footage in your timeline. And then once you're done, you render it. And then that applies all of that stuff that you saw. So it means that you don't have to have 5 million different kinds of saved files. It just kind of keeps everything simpler. But it means that it's also a linked program, which means that if you work on a whole bunch of stuff and then you move some files around, Premiere isn't going to know where to get them. It's not going to know where they went. It's not going to be able to find them. So you kind of want to, like all things, you want to have an organized system to keep stuff in the right place. So what I suggest you do is that you go to your hard drive and you just build like a really clear file system that you can put together. So for a lot of the stuff that I do, I just have specific folders that I put together here. So these are my works in progress, and then this would be my escalation drone project, and then I have everything kind of in here in clear places. Like this is the footage. This is where all of the footage I might use lives. And this is where the finished videos that I've rendered, even the test stuff where I'm just trying things out, it just lives in the finished videos folder. And you'll see that After Effects and Premiere both save their files in certain places where you tell it to. So you just want to make sure that you have a system that makes sense. Stash your stuff in a place where you won't lose it, and also a place that you back up, and a place where if you move a file from, say, one computer to the other, you can just easily transfer the entire folder onto a thumb drive and move it, as opposed to having to try and parse out pieces and parts of the whole thing. So that's some basics of it. Otherwise, Premiere is fairly straightforward project or process. Here we have very few tools. So, and Adobe has these tools kind of lined up here. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can set up your view if you want to. So you can go in here and change the workspace if you want to for assembly or editing or effects. There's a whole bunch of different things, these different setups that you can do. I like to just go with the classic, workspace of editing, which is what we're doing. And then once you've done that, you can just go in and you want to just make a new project. And so the project is like the overall encompassing kind of way that Premiere organizes all of the information and all the files. So it's important you think this through. You just create a new project. You could call it something like, we could call it like document. And you could call it, like foundations, let's say. So that might not be a bad way to do it. Don't worry about any of this stuff in here. Just click OK on that. So it's going to make you it's basically created a new project for you. And then within that, you have sequences. So if you go in here, you can go to a new sequence and create new sequences and stuff like that as you go through. Okay, and so what we want to do is we want to go ahead and save. So let's save this thing as, and we'll just put it in a place where we know that we can find it. So here on the desktop, let's say that we are, I've created a folder here, Foundations Premiere Tutorial, and I can put it in that folder. So this just saves all of the editing you're going to do is recorded in Premiere. If you do a lot of editing and changes and effects and stuff like that, and you don't save it correctly, you'll have to redo all of that work. But again, it doesn't touch the original footage that you're playing around with. So once you get that set up, then it's just a real simple matter of, once we've saved it, then you just hit Command S and save all the time. And whenever you want to back it up, it'll be saved there, whatever you're doing. So let's just make a new sequence. Let's go File, New Sequence. And there are all these kind of options that you can like give it for size and all that kind of stuff. Probably for what we're going to do, 720p is plenty. So 29 frames a second. So select one of those and just click OK on it. And you can see that you're going to have a sequence 1 in your timeline, and then you're going to have this timeline that just goes and goes and goes and goes forever and ever. So one of the things that you should know is that you can make the timeline bigger or smaller. You can zoom in or out by just sliding along here. And so you can see that the further over I slide this thing, the more it's the longer the timeline is. So I'm out to 8 minutes and 32 seconds here. And if I zoom in on it, this is down to like each frame that I have in each per second. So you can kind of dive in deep, or you can make it broad. Usually it's better to have a broad view at the beginning. The other thing to know is that you can also make these bigger and smaller by sliding these little buttons here. So that can be a useful thing when you're trying to edit video and you can't figure out what you have stashed where. And then also just to know that you can always resize any of these. So like if you click this one and drag it over here, it'll change it, but you probably just want to be careful about what you're choosing to do with all that, because you really don't want to mess with things too much. So we have a sequence made. We have all of our stuff kind of sort of set up in here, and then this is where the tools live. This is where the soundtrack is available. This is where the video is available. This media browser or the project, this is where you dump sequences into your project. So we just made sequence 1, so that'll live in there in its own thing. You can make a new sequence if you want. There's information here, effects. So if you want to add effects, they all are in there. You can add markers, or this is kind of a back, like a history button that you can go back into. So that's basically the layout and the basics of how this program works, just as far as its kind of set up. And the most important thing to know now is that everything in both After Effects and Premiere runs on a timeline. So it's this little 0, 0, 0, 0, and that's just telling you, how many frames, how many seconds, how many minutes of footage that you're looking at. So the timeline is an important thing. You want to make sure that you kind of know what it is and where to find stuff in your projects with that. So that's the basic kind of workspace and setup of Premiere. We'll work on importing some footage next and getting everything kind of set up and ready to work.